hoş geldiniz hepinize kardeşlerim ve hocam. I am none of those descriptions. I don't think I really fit into those descriptions that the MC has given. I'm just a simple student. I mean, like you, pursuing my PhD, and just going to share my perspective on this particular topic. And I hope that, inshallah, at the end of our discussion, we'll all benefit from it and we'll move forward. And that's it. So, the topic, sustaining peace and in sub-Saharan Africa, the role of Ghana as an icon of democracy and the threat to her internal security. I feel very honored to have been given a topic of this nature to discuss or to have a presentation on, because it is a topic that sits squarely within my heart. I am deeply passionate about this particular topic because especially the aspect of peace and also threats. There are issues that consistently, as we watch our television, we see how countries and other places have become targeted because of some of these things. So it's a topic that I'm really passionate about, and hopefully we'll do justice to it, inshallah. Okay, so I wouldn't want to waste a lot of your time because already we have spent a lot of time here. So we will move on. Before then, this is the outline that I intend to follow. 4 bullet points. I find that it is very necessary to give you a brief overview of Ghana's democratic transition or historical development. Just a quick review, and then to bring you to where we are now, and then we can see the way forward. So the first part of my presentation would be focused on a brief overview of Ghana's democratic transition, but I'll be focusing on after independence, not before independence, when we became independent as a country. From then till today, what has happened? We'll be talking about that. The second part will be looking at Ghana's role in peace building within sub-Saharan Africa. And then we will look at the existential threats to Ghana's internal security, and by extension, the internal security of sub-Saharan Africa and the world as a whole. And in 1966, this man, Osadifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, was overthrown by a group of military junta. They overthrew him and established a military rule. There was a coup d'etat. And the military rule continued till 1969, when they conducted an election and a new government was formed. Now, after the formation of the new government, 3 years later, there was again another coup d'etat. They were not satisfied with a constitutionally elected government. So 3 years later, there was another coup d'etat, and we had a military rule between 1972 to 1979. That's a long period of time. Ghana was under military rule. In 1979, the military government at the time, in fact, there were so many problems in the country, economic problems, food insecurity, so many challenges, human rights abuses. So a group of the military, young men, who were dissatisfied with the military rule, led a revolution. And the leader of this group was His Excellency Jerry John Rawlings, J.J. Rawlings. So he led a revolution, and in 1979, there was a revolution in Ghana that overthrew the military government that was in place. And when the government was overthrown, they conducted an election because they were hungry for democracy at the time. They have seen military rule, and it was not something beneficial to them. So they established quickly a constitutional government. But unfortunately, this constitutional government was short-lived because the election was done in 1979, and 2 years later, the same military group that organized the election came back again to throw away the president they supported and re-establish another military rule because they were not satisfied with the president. They thought that he was too weak. There were so many reasons about that, actually. We don't want to go into the detail. But they came back to do away with the president that they have put in place and re-establish another military rule. That saw Ghana under military rule for 11 good years, between 1981 to 1992, again led by J.J. Rawlings. In 1992, they said it's enough. Enough is enough. And there were a lot of pressures from the world and other places. So they had no option than to quickly convert into constitutional democracy. So in 1992, 1991, there was a referendum. And the referendum, Ghanaians embraced democracy. On the basis of that, an election was conducted somewhere around 1992. And again, J.J. Rawlings emerged as the president of Ghana. So he became the third elected president of Ghana. All those who ruled were not elected. They were under military rule. So J.J. Rawlings, from 1992 to date, since he became the president, 1992, he ruled for 4 years. 1996, he contested again and he won. And he ruled for another 4 years till the year 2000. Election was Ghana. You can go according to the constitution. You can go for an election 2 times. You qualify to contest for 2 times. So from 1992 to 1996 was 1 term. 1996 to 2000 was a 2nd term. And so he could not have, been re-elected. He was automatically disqualified. So he stepped aside and there was another election in 2000. And so the point here is, from 1992 to today, Alhamdulillah, we've not had any military intervention. We've not experienced any military rule. We have seen stability in Ghana. No military rule at all. It's been constitutional changes. Like I said, 1992, 1996, 1996, 2000 election. 2000 election, there was a change of government. We peacefully changed the government, and a new government came in. He ruled from 2000 to 2004. He was re-elected, and he ruled to 2008. And then that was it. A new president came. There was a change of government, and they ruled to 2012. Till dates continued like that. We keep on changing. No military rule, no coup d'etat, no political savage conflict, no war, up to date. So the big question is, what has helped Ghana to survive these years of political stability from 1992 to today? Because when you look at the region where Ghana is located and the countries around Ghana, you can understand my question, or the basis behind my question. Most of the countries that surround us are struggling with political difficulties, political instability. So the bigger question is, why is Ghana not affected? Or why hasn't Ghana been affected? Or why has Ghana, despite being surrounded by countries that are wallowing in political challenges, how has Ghana been able to survive all this while? What are the reasons? One, according to one of our famous professor by name Professor Bakwata, as a professor of political science, I borrowed all these ideas because they are ideas that I also agree with. Professor at the University of Ghana, he outlined these factors. Of course, the third one and the final one I added. One, memories of the past. What be my memories of the past? As you can see from the historical transition that I have laid out, we have seen different systems, military rule, human rights abuses, no respect for law. People have suffered a lot under military rule. So it is not something they would wish to go back. When they look at the memories of the events that took place under military dictatorship, they say, no, democracy, even if it is worse, is better than military rule. This is the reason. So they comfort themselves with that factor, and it sustained our peace. It contributed to sustaining our peace for all this while. The second is enhanced civil-military relations. Yes, in the past, there were no, strong military-civilian interaction. But since 1992, the president, who is just a civilian, he has been made the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. That means that the entire military machinery is under the control of the president, who is a mere civilian. At the same time, the president appoints people who are civilians. For example, he appoints the Minister of Defense. He is not a military man. He appoints the Chief of Defense Staff. They are not military men. These are civilians who have been brought into the military camp. By military camp, I mean they have been brought into the military arena to be in charge of the military of the country. So this kind of rapprochement that has been established between the military and the civilian by virtue of the nature of 1992 Constitution of Ghana facilitated effective interaction between the two and helped to ease tension between civilians and then the military. And it has contributed immensely to our peace and stability to date. The third point is the role of civil society organizations. Yes, we are talking about STK in Turkish. They will say STK'lar. Büyük bir rol oynadılar gerçekten. So we've got lots of civil societies who have contributed a lot in educating people and educating the military and the police on their own responsibilities towards the country, to understand that their responsibility is to safeguard the people and to protect the constitution. And so it is not their responsibility to take over control of power. So those kinds of educations and focus actually contributed a lot to the lasting peace that we have seen since 1992 to now. The fourth one, we can talk about media pluralism. Of course, when you look at countries around the world, some countries around the world, the media, they say, is a fourth force of democracy, or the third force of democracy. In every democratically strong country, you need to have effective media machinery working very well. If you don't have it, then you have weak institutions in the country. In terms of this particular situation, I would say Ghana has excelled a lot. We have widened our landscape. We used to have what we call the criminal libel law. The criminal libel law criminalized publications and sort of limited the practice of media. Actually, before 1992, we only had, because of these kinds of laws, we only had one media house controlling all the news in Ghana. But since we came into the Fourth Republic and the laws opened doors for the flourishing of media houses, now we have thousands of them in the country now. And it has contributed a lot. It has led to transparency in governance because people are not kept in the loop. People understand what is happening. People have open door policy. I mean, there's an open door policy where people express their views and also try to find out what is happening within the governance system. So the media pluralism has contributed a lot. Also, relations with development partners. It has also contributed a lot. Ghana, of course, as a developing country, just like any other developing countries, you cannot survive on your own. You need to connect with the world. You need some kind of international partnership to help you to excel in whatever agenda you have for your country. And we know that most of these international partnerships cannot survive if you have a certain kind of system. There is no way they would like to partner with you if your system is not transparent. There is no way they will partner with you to help your country develop if you are under a certain kind of military control. So on the basis of this, we have no option. Since we are a developing country and we are looking for partnership to help us also develop, definitely we would have no option than to respect the peace that we enjoy or we have as a country so we can move forward. So this has also contributed to that. And then the last part is effective electoral process. Yes, the Ghanaian electoral process, this is, I want to emphasize a few things here. I think it's one of the most transparent electoral processes I have seen. You have to look at the processes that lead to the election. We have what we call ARPOC, the inter-party, inter-party advisory committee. What happens with this inter-party advisory committee is that now you have the electoral commission. That's their job to conduct an election. But the electoral commission needs to make sure that the citizens have confidence in the work that they do. So they set up the inter-party advisory committee made up of representatives of different political parties. And so the electoral commission engaged them, the ARPOC, to come out with any law, rules related to election, everything. So the electoral commission doesn't take unilateral decisions. No. This is very, very important. And it has contributed to enhancing transparency in our electoral process. In addition to this, before an election in Ghana, we have think tank, for example, the Institute of Economic Affairs. They allow for an open debate between the political parties, the leaders of the political parties. It's a debate, just like it happens in the US that we watch. We also have the same system in Ghana. Citizens can listen to arguments that are being proposed by each of the candidates and make up their mind on who is more qualified or deserving of their mandate and who is less qualified or deserving of their mandate. And I think that it has also added a lot to the transparent nature of our electoral system. Apart from that, we have also now migrated to the electronic system, day in, day out. A lot of things are being done, and these are in consultation with the political parties. They are not left aside at all. So this one, having such a transparent system, puts confidence in people. There's no way that after losing election, why go and fight and kill someone? No, there's no point of that. Because I understand the system is very transparent. So these factors, we can say, contributed significantly to sustaining peace in Ghana since our commencement of our Fourth Republic from 1992 till date. However, today, as I stand here to speak to you, and on the basis of this, Ghana is being called the beacon of democracy in Africa. Ghana is being called all positive names. Because of this, important personalities and institutions in Ghana have played significant role in building peace in other countries. People are learning from the experiences that they have had from their country to help them put together the problems that they also have in their country. So the question is, in which areas? I will just give some few examples of them. We will talk about the case of Liberian Civil War. When the Liberian Civil War started, the Liberians, in order for them to put together what the country currently looks like today, for them to achieve peace, they benefited immensely from Ghana, from the contribution of Ghana, especially Ghanaian figures, starting with this man, His Excellency J.J. Rawlings. He was the third president of Ghana. At the time of the Liberian War, you know that thousands of people were displaced. There were people who were maimed, killed. People were running for their lives. Ghana opened the door for them to be welcomed into the country. And as I speak to you today, some of them continue to live in Ghana. They are married, they become Ghanaians, and their life is good. This is how Ghana, a peaceful country of that nature, has contributed in terms of peace building. The second thing is, not only that, the president at the time
and was also the head of ECOWAS. By the way, ECOWAS is a community, economic community of West African states. It's like a union, just like European Union that we have. But this is for West Africa. He was the then head of ECOWAS, and he was re-elected as the head at the time. He played an instrumental role in bringing peace and creating attention of the international community to the problems of Liberia. Indeed, Jerry Rawlings, at the time, what he did was he made a lot of noise, called on the United Nations, called in the United States, called in the European Union, to the conditions and the sufferings of the people of Liberia. And because of this active role, what happened eventually, somewhere around 1995, the United Nations in October organized a special forum just on Liberia, and they invited His Excellency George Rawlings to play a key role in that, to benefit from the experiences of Ghana. They invited him there. And out of that, about $110 million was secured to support in bringing peace in Liberia. Not only that, Rawlings also met with the warring parties. He met them in Ghana. He called them to come to Ghana, the two parties that are in dispute. They met in Akosombo, a small city in Ghana. They met in Accra, all in the name of trying to build peace within the country of Liberia. And it continued. We sent troops there and all that. Eventually, we see the positive results. We can talk about Sierra Leone because of time. I'm just trying to run because I'll focus on one part more. Sierra Leone Civil War, the same thing. The same man, His Excellency President Rawlings, played a key role in the Sierra Leone problems, bringing the two parties together. In fact, after their meeting, at a point in time, he personally called them to come to Accra, where they sat down together and he tried to help to bridge the differences, to bring them together. It's a very important step that we cannot forget. Because of this, actually, when you go to Sierra Leone today, I've got Sierra Leonean friends, they don't joke with him, and they don't joke with Ghanaians, because they know the instrumental role that we play in their country. The same thing applies to Liberia as well. Yes. Then Somalia, today, still benefiting from the wealth of experience of Ghanaian figures. Because if you don't have the experience, how do you sustain peace all this while? Today, the same man here in 2010 was selected by the African Union to be the AU representative in Somalia and to help bring peace in Somalia. He's still playing that active role. Hopefully, the end, we all pray that, inshallah, will be something very, very positive. But it is something we need to recognize, because if not for the fact that he has been recognized as someone from a country with such a wealth of experience in peace, he wouldn't have been called at all. The same way we can talk about also our role in regional elections. This man is also the ex-president of Ghana. He has been called to play key role and actually to lead Commonwealth election observers in different countries, starting with Gambia. You can talk about Liberian election, that's all, the election of George Weah as their current president. You can talk about Sierra Leone, Zimbabwe, all these places he played key role. Also, we have significant number of our parliamentarians in ECOWAS parliaments leading very, very important positions, helping to sustain democracy within the region. So we can go on and on and on, but for the want of time, I will just move on to the next step. So the experiences that we have gained as a country is recognized by the regional powers, and that is why our people are consistently engaged to promote democracy and peace within the Sub-Saharan region. However, it does appear we have taken the peace for granted these days. There's a saying that if you love your child too much, you pamper your child, you make him feel so much happy. At a point in time, he goes off the line. So it does appear we have taken things for granted. And now we are breeding a ground for a serious problem for our country. It's a problem, and I think that an occasion like Independence Anniversary is a better platform for us to look at our problem, to reflect on it, to see the way where we came from and where we are going. They say an unexamined life is not worth living. This is the significant part of my presentation today, actually. We just started. What are those threats? Two of them. One is political vigilantism. Second, forced conceptualization of policing and police identity. I'll be breaking each of them down, and inshallah, it will be the end of my presentation, inshallah. Political vigilantism. When I was preparing my slides for the presentation, I was really surprised when I went into the internet, Google, and I typed political vigilantism. All the things that pop up is about Ghana. This is really sad for me as a Ghanaian. We need to talk about it. So, political vigilantism, we are talking about a system now where our political parties, political elites, today, they are creating their own paramilitary. They are creating their own army. And all they use them is to make sure that they help them win an election. They help them to attack their opponent. They help them to deal with their opponents. And it's really, really sad. Both the party in government and the party that is also in opposition, they all have these private armies. They have relegated the state armies and they have constituted their own militias. And they are using them for their own purposes. This is an existential threat, not only to our democracy, but also to the peace and stability of the sub-region. Because like I mentioned, Ghana is in the same position with Turkey. Turkey is in a very critical location. Look at the countries that surround Turkey. How many of them are living peacefully? When they run to Turkey when they have talks. So Turkey is a point that welcomes people who are in trouble. It's like a savior. Ghana is playing a similar role there. Because the surrounding countries have problems. They have political issues. And the only place they can run for hope is Ghana, their neighbor. So if Ghana is faced with such an existential threat, it's a concern to me, to you, and to all of us. Because we'll all be affected in one way or another. That is why an occasion like this called for us to discuss this and raise our voice so our political elites will begin to change their course. This is just a by-election. A by-election, one Millet Wakil, member of parliament, died. And so they needed to replace him. And so we had to go for a short election. And what did we see there? Instead of exchange of ideas, we saw a full display of private military marshals to demonstrate that, yes, they can deal with people ruthlessly. This is what we're talking about. This is an election. It looks like a road. There's a mere election. Go and protect an election. Look at the dressing and look at the way people are being treated. This is what we're talking about here. This is the threat with serious problem that we are being faced with today, unfortunately. And we will discuss the way we are handling it. The second part is forced conceptualization of policing and police identity. Police, they say, must be friends of the people. Because how can you protect people when people are scared of you? How can you protect me when I'm scared of you? There's no way. We need to find a way, right? To make sure that the police are friends of the people. But unfortunately, we have a false concept of policing in our country today. Perhaps in other African countries as well. My brothers, I'm sure they'll bear with me. Police, by police, people think that your job is to be fearsome. You have to be scary. You have to be violent. People must run away. You have to be seen to be using force. And today we see it. It's the kind of concept they have in the minds of our police, and it drives them in the way they deal with people. And so we have the problem of police brutality. And it is also an existential threat to our police, which we'll be talking about it later. Okay, so these are the threats. The question now is, what will be the way forward? How do we handle these existential threats? I'm just going to go faster. Yes, our president, His Excellency Nana Akufo-Addo, he is the president of Ghana named Sheikh Pasham. He has come with a suggestion, and the suggestion is that with respect to the political vigilantism, he is asking the political parties to themselves come together and decide on how to deal with the problem. This is a lame approach in my candid opinion. You have two warring parties. It's just like Syria. You have the opposition, the rebels, and you also have the government battling. Then the international community say, okay, the two of you go and sit down and resolve and find a way to resolve the issue. These people, if they had a way to resolve it, would they be fighting in the first place? They would not be fighting in the first place. They are looking for a mediator. So I disagree with this approach. Unfortunately, that's a lame approach that has been taken by our political elites, which shows that there is what? A low political will to help deal with the problem, unfortunately. I think in order to deal with this problem, the way forward is to understand the genesis of political vigilantism. What is the genesis? The genesis of political vigilantism has to do with confidence in the legal system and the institutions of state that we have. If people don't have belief in the institutions of state, people don't believe that they can be protected, people don't believe that their rights will be respected, people do not believe that when they have a case and they go to the right institutions, they will be attended to on time and everything will be done properly. If people don't have such beliefs, then it creates a vacuum. It creates a platform for them to say, well, you know what? Let's come together and take the law into our own hands and deal with the issue the same way, the way we think. Because we cannot trust the institution. So it tells you that we have an institutional failure and we need to look at that. Right? Rather than just asking them to go and sit and solve the issue, we need to look at the problem with our institution. So it's the same thing that I've mentioned. So we need to look at that to deal with it. This cannot be solved because, one, if you come, the police, the head of the police, is being chosen by the president, who is a politician. The head of the judiciary, the legal system, is chosen by the president. All these people are chosen by the president. So how do you expect people to function effectively when they are chosen by someone they are supposed to work under him? How do they challenge him? These are problems here. So it's about institutional failure. So the way forward is we should have independent institutions, meaning our institutions must be allowed to be independent, and by independent we mean fully independent, so that the Chief Justice, the Inspector General of Police, those institutions we have in place to deal with some of these menace problems in our country should not be selected by political parties, should not be selected by heads of political parties. They should be allowed, there should be a way for the Constitution to establish such people to be independent and free from control of these externals, and also reduce bureaucracy that I mentioned. And the last part, then we wind up. Understanding the police brutality. Why do we have our police, for example, engaging in such brutalized activity, attacking people, in all manner of things? Such police violence. It stems from the kind of identity that the police feel they have. I have talked about some of them, which is they think that the police must be this, must be very aggressive, you must deal with people in a very forceful way and all that. So the way forward will be for us to conscientize the police force, for them to understand that policing is not about this. It is not about being fearsome. It's about actually respecting the people, because it's the only way you can build the peace you are seeking to build as an institution. Okay, just to wrap up. So, reconstruction of the concept of policing and police identity is the way forward. Now, to end my speech, before before today, when this topic was given to me, there were backdoor discussions that you are coming to sell your country, you are coming to talk about the negatives of your country and all that. I don't see it like that at all. At all. Because like the saying, if you keep saying you are fine, then you are putting a wall around your problems. We are living in a global world. The problem of Ghana is not a problem of Ghana alone. It is important that people, especially from other regions, understand the existential threats that we are faced with as a country today. Hopefully, when they add their voice to the growing calls for a seizure to these kinds of problems, our political elite will listen and begin to chart a path that will rather lead to sustainability of our already established peace. This is why I feel that it is important for us to discuss this topic with all those who matter, to join us so we can fight our political ethics with a stronger voice so they can begin to chart a better path. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Doc, thank you very much. To be a man is not easy. To be an academic guru is even worse. I hope members are not bored because of the time, but the delivery was perfect. As a result, I don't think people became so bored. In my own small way, I think the English is too big enough for me to translate in Turkish. Heads will roll when I begin to translate it here. There will be academic terrorism on my head. As a result, I hired somebody to do that for and on my behalf. Within a twinkling of an eye, in the form of Osset summary, one of our brothers, a co-GACID member, an associate of Ghana, we have also extended citizenship to him. He would come within a twinkling of an eye to give us that in Turkish, because I cannot. I can't. Mr. Ramadan, over to you.
Herkese merhabalar. Değerli konuklar, sevgili arkadaşlar, Muhammed'e özellikle teşekkür ediyoruz bu güzel sunumu için. Ben de birkaç dakika içerisinde onun söylediklerini Türkçesi anlatmaya çalışacağım. Muhammed bize Sahra Altı Afrika'da barışın sürdürülmesi, demokrasinin simgesi olarak Gana'nın rolü ve Gana'nın iç güvenliğine yönelik tehditler başlığıyla bir sunum yaptı. Bunu bize 4 başlık altında sundu. Birinci başlıkta Gana'nın geçirdiği demokratik dönüşüm sürecini anlattı. 1957'de bağımsızlığını kazanan Gana, 1960'da bir cumhuriyet haline gelmiş. Ama bu süreçte, günümüze kadar geçirdiği süreçte 3 defa askeri müdahaleye maruz kalmış. 66-69 arasında, 72-79 arasında, 80 ve 92 arasında. Ama buna rağmen 92 yılında tekrar anayasal düzene kavuşmayı başarmış ve günümüze kadar bu demokratik anayasal düzende bir problem yaşamadan varlığını sürdürmeye devam etmiş. Bunda başarılı olmuş Gana. İkinci başlığında Sahra Altı Afrika'da demokrasinin inşasında Gana'nın rolünü anlatmaya çalıştı. Gana'nın bu rolünde hangi maddelerin etkili olduğunu söyledi. Öncelikli olarak tabii tarihi hafızanın taze olması, en kötü demokrasinin en iyi askeri düzenden daha iyi olduğu anlayışının yeşermesi ve bu düşüncenin yeşermesinde Gana'daki sivil toplum örgütlerinin etkili olduğunu, Gana'nın gelişmiş uluslararası partnerlerinin olması ve bölgede yaşanan, yani Gana'da yaşanan etkili seçim süreçlerinin olmasından bahsetti. Bunların etkili olduğunu söyledi. Üçüncü başlığında ise barışın inşasında Gana'nın rolü ve Sahra Altı Afrika'da demokratikleşme sürecinden bahsetti. Bu demokratikleşme sürecinde etkili olan maddeleri bize anlattı. Şöyle ki, 2 tane sivil savaştan ve bir savaştan bahsetti. Bu savaşlardan çıkarılan dersler, Liberyalı Sivil Savaşı, Sierra Leone Sivil Savaşı ve Somali Savaşı olduğunu söyledi. Yine bölgede yaşanan seçimlerin buna etkisinden bahsetti. Ve ECOWAS parlamentosunun başarılı olmasının bu sürece etkisinden bahsetti. Son başlığında ise Gana'nın iç güvenliğine yönelik tehditleri sıraladı. Gana'nın iç güvenliğine yönelik tehditlerin başında ise siyasi dayatmaların ve polis kavramının tam oturtulamamasını vurguladı. İngilizcesiyle yine police identity dedi. Bunu Türkçe'ye çevirmek nasıl olur tam bilemedim ama şimdi Muhammed'i dinlerken tabii ben şeyi yaşadım, çok benzer süreçler yaşanmış. Türkiye'de de askeri müdahaleler oldu. Cumhuriyetin kurulmasından sonra demokratikleşme süreci biraz vakit aldı. Daha çok yakın bir tarihte bir askeri müdahaleye maruz kaldık. Dolayısıyla siyasi vandalizm belki de ya da silahlı güçlerin demokratik sürece müdahale etmesi, sivil düşünceyi şekillendirmeye çalışması olarak belki çevirebiliriz bunu. Bunun önlenebilmesi adına da adaletin tesis edilmesi gerektiğini söyledi. Bunun için de tabii bağımsız kuruluşların olması gerektiğini, bürokrasinin bir şekilde elimine edilmesinin gerektiğini ve polis kavramının ve polis düşüncesinin doğru temellere oturması gerektiğini vurguladı diye anladım ben. Çok teşekkür ediyorum. Umarım hepsini, Muhammed'in söylediği hepsini teker teker aktaramasam da temel düşüncenin bu olduğundan eminim. Çok teşekkür ederim.
Ben de size çok teşekkür ediyorum. Just as has been emphasized, I wouldn't like to talk for so long again. Time has been fast spent. Next on the agenda is an interlude. What's the interlude? It's no more necessary. Because in the place of the interlude, with the powers vested in my hands, I'll give it to him to do the translation for and on my behalf. So watch the interlude. Anyway, rounding up is our second presenter. I guess he's also ready. Our second presenter is also from Ghana. He also had his Bachelor of Arts degree in Political Science at the University of Ghana, also Legon. He proceeded to the Netherlands, Holland, for a master's in Public Policy and Administration. He graduated, went back home to serve his motherland, and worked briefly at NCCE, the National Center for Civic Education in Ghana. National Commission. At the NCCE in Ghana. Thereafter, the bells rang. Turkey calling. He came to Turkey and was stationed with the likes of BFND in Izmir. He is a PhD candidate at Izmir's Dokuz Eylül University in Public Policy and Management. Ladies and gentlemen, between now and 2 weeks, he will be defending his thesis in the Turkish language. So I guess even when he finishes in the English, he can do the Turkish translation. Ladies and gentlemen, with a rousing welcome, help me to welcome Doc Al-Hassan Wuripe, in short, Wuripite, to deliver on Ghana's educational policy. Do we have a future with hope, or our future is in despair? Over to you to dissect the issue for us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, everyone, for coming. Mr. Chairman, invited guests, colleagues, fellow Africans, ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed. Today is Ghana's special day, and as a result, we're trying to look at our educational system. Education is, as we all know, is very important in the development of nations. Ghana had its independence 62 years ago. How have we come with our educational system? Are we developing? Are we stagnant? That is what I am here to do today. So in short, I'm trying to look at our educational policies. Are the policies in tune with international policies? Are they good? Are they good that can lead us to development? Is Ghana on its way to development with its educational policies? That is what I'm here to unpack, or as it were, examine. I would like to talk a little bit about the background of education. Thank you. This is the outline of my presentation. I'll do a little bit about the introduction. As it were, I'll give a general introduction about education. Then I'll also try to look at the importance of education in the lives of nations and individuals and in society. Then I'll move on to talk about the concepts that we'll be talking about. Education and policy, what are they? Then I'll also try to look at the contemporary Ghanaian policies, contemporary, present Ghanaian policies, educational policies. Then what are the objectives of our educational policies? I'll try to look at them too. Then I'll also look at what our educational system has brought us. Are we in the right direction? Is there a need for change? Then I'll finish up with the prospects for development. Will these policies lead us to a better development? Okay, as it were, we all know that education is very important in the evolution of humanity. When you look at how the world unfolded or civilization unfolded, education has been part of it. Initially, when you look at Greeks, education was what made them, like as it were, they conquered the world. They had a lot of philosophers, and up to date, education in Greek, or the Greek scholars are the prominent scholars, most of the prominent scholars in the world. So education has played a fundamental role in the evolution of humanity. We also, education as it were, the importance is quite clear. The importance of education is quite palpable for everybody to see. But when you look at education, it has got individual benefits and societal benefits. To the individual, okay, as I said already, the benefits of education is well known. Everybody, we can talk about how it is good to the individual. For the individual, it helps us to, as it were, it develops our minds. It develops our minds. It gives us the platform to, as it were, empower ourselves and be able to develop our abilities or potentials. To the society, education helps build nations. It is what, as it were, it is what drives innovations, what builds coherent societies. Before we can move on. And one of a great man in Africa said that if you really want, education is a very important tool. He likened it to as a weapon that can develop nation. There's Thank you. Another great statesman, Confucius, also said that if you, he explained the importance of education by likening it to kind of giving a part, as it were. He said that if you have a plan that is 1 year, you plant rice. If you have a plan that is for 10 years, you should plant trees. But if you have a plan that is for 100 years and more, educate children. And this captures the essence of what? Education. Education, as it were, it cures social ills in a society. To the individual, as I said before, it gives us a platform to develop ourselves. It gives us, we are able to earn more when we are educated. It helps us, it is very important for us, and it eradicates, above all, it eradicates poverty. If you are educated, you have more potential than an illiterate. To the society, it is a source of innovation as it drives the world. Education drives the world, and it strengthens our institutions to live better. So as we celebrated today, educational policies around the globe has become very important, and Ghana is no exception. Ghana to education has been part of our trajectory since independence. But as we celebrate 62 years of independence today, the question we ask ourselves is, are we really making progress in terms of development? When you look at our developmental trajectories, Ghana is quite far behind in terms of infrastructure. We still have preventable diseases, and as a result of it, we try to look at how far our educational system has really brought us. Then, when you look at the educational system in Ghana, since independence, Ghana has been treated as one of the best educational systems within our sub-region, within West African sub-region. But when you look at our development vis-a-vis this accolades, our educational system is underperforming. So as it were, this presentation is trying to look at the policies that we have and how far it has brought us. But before I continue, I would like to give clarifications about the concept, the key things that I'll be talking about. That is education and policy. Education, we all know, we can define it narrowly or as it were broadly. In the narrow perspective, once we are born, we start learning. Education starts from birth till death. We learn throughout our whole lives. But my focus here is not on this. My focus here is about formal education, like an institutionalized structure where we go to learn, and it's structured. You have term bounds, we start and it's progressive till we finish the university. This is what I'm going to talk about. So with this, policy. What is policy? Normally, policy is like any social science concept, is very broad and is applicable in different situations. When you look at policy, normally you go to an institution or you ask someone something and he tells you, this is our policy. We do things this way. You can leave it, that is policy. But broadly, politics is everywhere. It governs our affairs. It is, in simple terms, it is just a plan or activities with something like a budget. You have activities, then you cost it, and it tries to serve you as a guide. Here, so in simple terms, policy is when policy relates to activities of the public. We call it, or the government, we call it the public policy. And a scholar by name Kirkpatrick defined public policy as systems of laws, rules, measures, courses of action, and funding of priorities that we put together within a government department or within the society. Ghana present educational systems or policies. Since independence, we have a number of educational policies. But presently, since we returned to democratic rule in 1992, we've had the Constitution of Ghana, and that serves as a prime source of our policies. And when you look at the Constitution of Ghana, it clearly spells out what we intend to, as far as education is concerned. It guarantees that education is a right to every citizen in Ghana. Once you are in Ghana, you are entitled to be educated, and the Constitution guarantees it for you. And this is provided in a number of articles in the Constitution. Specifically, Article 25, it says that all persons have equal right to education opportunities and facilities. Further, when you move on, it further states that basic education, and with basic education, I'll come to it starts from kindergarten to senior high school. Every Ghanaian is supposed to have it free, and it's compulsory. When you go to another place that we can see policies, educational policies of Ghana is when you take the directive principles of the state policy. These directive principles embodies what Ghana stands for, what Ghana intends to achieve, what do we want to achieve in terms of development. Currently, our contemporary educational policies, we have what we call the free, compulsory, universal-based education, the FQIP. This FQIP was launched in 1995. After we returned to democratic rule, there was a need for education because we were backward. So they launched this as a source of motivation to remove all free school fees and to make schools accessible to everyone. The principal objective was to boost enrollment and to give every child the opportunity to study. Some of the objectives of it are the improvement of teaching and learning, improvement of quality of education, giving access to every Ghanaian, and decentralization of the management. As it were, it gave a structure that education was to be decentralized to the district assemblies. We have what we call the district assemblies in Ghana, like the Belediye system in here. They were supposed to be in charge of education. But as it were, currently it's not this way, but I'll talk of it later. Although the FQIC, it's initially, when you introduce a policy, it picks up, but with time it stabilized and the enrollment figures declined. It had a number of challenges. This policy, even though it was very effective, it had a number of challenges. Initially, the implementation was a problem because it was linked to this Belediye system. They were supposed to be coordinating these activities. But as it were, the power has not been given to these people too. Our Belediye system is said that we still have the center, what we call the central government, controlling everything. So virtually, the system says they should be controlling, but in reality, they are not controlling. After several years, in 2005, we had to relaunch the program again because it was declining. Enrollment numbers were going down. So we had to bring the program back again as a policy. But before this policy, Ghana had initially, since independence, had a number of policies, just like this one. The first one was the Accelerated Development Policy that was introduced by our first president, as my colleague talked about. Our first president, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, he had a vision for Ghana. So he launched the program to give education to Ghanaians and as it were to also develop our systems, give special education to Ghanaians in order to realize his developmental plan. Then we also had, before independence, the last colonial governor who came to Ghana had an educational plan for Ghana, which was also free, but because it was at a time we didn't have quality teachers, so it was limited. It couldn't work because there were no quality teachers. Then in 1961, Nkrumah himself launched an educational policy. Then he enacted a policy to accompany this, and it really helped in boosting the education of Ghana. But his reign was truncated. As he said, there was a coup d'etat, and his rule was truncated. Another policy that governs Ghana's educational sector is the Education Act. And with this Educational Act, it spells out clearly and in details what Ghana is supposed to do in terms of education. Ghana is supposed to give education to individuals, to give them requisite skills and opportunities in order to contribute to the development and advancements of Ghana. Basically, within this act, it spells out the systems, how Ghana's educational system should be framed. At the basic level, it's supposed to be 11 years. 2 years kindergarten, 3 years, we have 6 years for primary school, then we have 3 years for junior high, and very recently we've added the senior high. So we have up to 14 years of free education. It also, within this Educational Act, it also spells out that we're supposed to have a tertiary education. And this tertiary education is after the basic level, now the senior high. After the senior high, we have the universities and polytechnics and other allied institutions. Within this Educational Act too, you see that it really affirms the compulsory nature of the education. At the basic level, it says it should be free and compulsory. It didn't stop there. It went further to state that if a child is of school-going age and is not in school, the Beledier has a responsibility. The Beledier has the responsibility to caution the parents. As it were, they will have to call the parents, talk to the parent, ask why the child is not in school. But as it were, it is not happening because the Beledier is handicapped. Ghana educational policies have also been shaped by international communities. Ghana is part of the international community, and as it were, we try to achieve policies in line with the international objectives. Internationally, we had a number of policies. For instance, the World Declaration of Education for All. When you look at Ghana educational policy, almost all the policies are stressing that we should have education that are for everyone, and it's in line with this 1990 Educational Declaration. Then the right to education, the Universal Education Declaration, is also an international charter that stresses that education is a right and everybody must acquire it. So this, and Ghana is signatories to these international conventions. So as it were, we are enjoined to align our policies to these conventions. Now the Millennium Goals. In the year 2000, the world gathered and said we had to chart a common platform. And as part of the platform, they had objectives or goals for education. And when you take Ghana's current educational policies, we're trying to achieve the Millennium Development Goals. The Millennium Development Goals expired in 2015, then it was extended with the Sustainable Development Goals. And the Sustainable Development Goals also stresses the importance of education and the promotion of long life learning. And when you take Ghana educational policies, as part of the objective, we're trying to achieve all this. Ghana we also formulate education strategic plans. As where we plan ahead, like a long time planning about what we want to achieve for our educational system. And currently Ghana has we are on our education strategy plans, and this plan clearly states what we want to achieve. Then we do, within this plan, there are SWOT analysis that we identify the problems, the opportunities, and we try to see how far our resources can manage this. And when you look at these strategic plans, we have some thematic areas. The one we have, first one we have is, it's intended to solve is access to education. That is making education to every child in Ghana. Quality of education, it also stresses on the quality of education that we're supposed to provide. Management too is also stated, and it's supposed to be based on science and technology and technical education. But when you look at these policies, strategic policies, it appears, when you take the plans, it appears all the plans have almost the same problems. So what is happening is that it means that we have not been able to solve the problems, or as it were, it doesn't give a clear picture as to how to solve the problems. Because when you look at these plans, all these things continue emerging. So what is happening? Are we not solving the problems? Access to education. Still, we're still talking about access to education after having declared this in 1992. Yet, enrollment in Ghana is still hovering around 70%. And the net, when you take the net, is around 57%. We also talk about quality of, the quality of education is we are told Ghana within Africa has a good educational system. But when you compare it internationally, a current report by the World Bank states that within Africa, when you take people like grade 2 students, at the end of their grade 2, they are not able to do common arithmetic, add, plus, and minus. And they are not also able to read simple sentences. And it stated that it was about 80% of African students, and Ghana is part of it. So how qualitative is our education? So this suggests that we are not really, our statement, our plans, strategic plans are not really being achieved. Yet we keep rolling strategic plans year in, year out. Now, another educational policy that has been launched, and this is the newest, is a free senior high school. Education in Ghana, senior high school is supposed to be free. You don't have to pay anything. It has just been launched 2 years ago, but as any policy, it's still having its problems, teaching problems. But as we're doing at these evaluations, it's still too early to evaluate this policy. But when you look at how policies have been dealt with in the past, it's quite worrying. Because normally when people learn policies, like in the developed world, when they learn policies, it advances and develops. But in the case of Ghana or Africa, once a policy is launched, after 5 years or 10 years, when you look at the policy, it dwindles or it regresses. It does not it seems not to be progressing. So what is the problem? So this senior high school is one of the newest, and is well embraced, even though it had a number of challenges. The political elites were debating about it, but yet this government, the new government that came in, it took a bold decision and brought it on board, and it's now being implemented, but it's still facing a lot of challenges like infrastructure and the costs. Look at the Ghana educational expenditure. As I talk about the cost, I want to buttress with the expenditure we are spending on education. As I said, look at in 1999, in 2009, our expenditure, GDP, on education was about 5.3. Then it moved on to, in 2011, 8.1. Then it started retrogressing, decreasing. Then, as you can see, by 2017, we're spending 4.5. Meanwhile, we've launched an additional cost, we've introduced new policies that demands that parents should not pay anything. The government will show everything, but the cost is reducing. So how are we going to find it? How are we funding this? Purposes of Ghana educational policies. What are the policies supposed to achieve? Since independence, when you look at Ghana, when you study our history critically, it outlines most of the policies. Initially, our educational policies before independence were supposed to serve only the colonialists. Initially, when they came, they had children with Ghanaians. Those who had children with Ghanaians, they call mulattoes. Their educational system was supposed to tailor to these people. Then it moved on as they started to evangelize, and our educational system became like teaching people how to read English and write, as it were, to propagate Christianity. Then it went on. Then when we assumed colonialism, it was our educational policies were just to train a few clerks and people who were to help the colonialists to administer Ghana. So since independence, since colonial era, we've had a quite number of policies, and these are. But currently, when Nkrumah became the president, he had a development plan. So he also introduced a policy, and as for his policies were directed to have some specialized skills, like doctors, engineers, because at independence, Ghana was short of these people. We only had few clerics. So he set out a plan. And during that era, he gave a lot of scholarships to Ghanaians to study in outside the country on these special programs. Then came the Republic, the Second Republic. The Second Republic, as it were, it also had a number of good policies, educational policies, but because, as Mr. Barrick talked about, we had a lot of military interventions. So we couldn't have, as it were, it overshadowed the educational policies. Of a particular, but within this era, we had a very important policy, and that is what I want to highlight. This policy, initially, Ghana educational policy were kind of academic oriented. So this 1974 an educational policy was introduced that added an technical and vocational aspect to our educational system. Then our current educational policies depends on this. When you look at the mission statement of the Ministry of Education, it states that it intends to give relevant education to every Ghanaian to enable them reach their potentials and as it will contribute to the socio-economic growth of Ghana. Our educational policies and development. When you look, there's a direct link between education and development. Almost all nations that have developed based on their educations and the human resources, the quality of human resources. But relatively, when you look at where Ghana came from, at least we've progressed a little bit, but we need to go past. We need to do more. At independence, our educational system was very robust. We're treated as one of the best educations, but the literacy level was quite minimal. Then currently our illiteracy level is hovering around 65%. We had a number of infrastructure problems at the time, and currently when you look, we have infrastructure, educational, maybe it might not be the best, but in every part of Ghana you can get education. But even with this, we still faces a lot of problems. There's widespread poverty, there's disease, inadequate infrastructure, little reliance on science and technology. But when you compare at independence, Ghana was at the same place with South Korea. We had the same per capita income with South Korea. So, but recently when we compare Ghana to South Korea, they far advanced. How did they do it? South Korea education system, they had a vision for their education system. They tailored their educational system to goals. They had signposts, and they also invested heavily in their educational system. And that's what Ghana is not doing. In South Korea, they've almost attained 100% literacy. They are one of the best or the most highly educated labor in the world, and they are rubbing shoulders with the OECD countries. Yet Ghana is nowhere near this. Results of educational policies. Currently, our educational policies are quite they are churning out a number of unemployed graduates, and the number is quite scary, because it's not science, it's not linked to our developmental needs. Our educational have also proved to be quite, it's not building patriotic citizens, and this is cut across Africa. When you look at independence, we had dedicated people. Now it is it's pathetic. Our educational system is collapsing. When you look at technical education, it's almost collapsing in Ghana and in Africa. In preparing this slide, I look at the World Bank statistics on Africa as regards to technical and vocational education. And when you look at developing countries, almost all developing countries had nothing when it came to technical and vocational skills. But when you look at the advanced countries, they had their educational systems where they had a lot of educational systems that had to do with technical and vocational aspects. Relevant education is necessary for socio-economic development. We have potential, but we are underperforming, and we need to address this. Our educational system is it's not equipping the people for the job market or as to the outside world. Shortfalls our educational systems. It appears our educational systems are quite reactive or ameliorating. It's not proactive. We don't look ahead. Currently, when you look at the world is far ahead. But within Africa or in Ghana, we are still, our educational system is quite, as it were, remote. It's not developed in line with, people are now studying computer systems, artificial intelligence, but we are no more there. Inconsistencies in our educational systems. These inconsistencies have to do with politicians, the political elites. This particular program I mentioned, the SS, in the year 2005 to 2007, we had an educational review. They said the educational system should be 4 years, but when the new government came to power, they reversed it. They said, no, we don't want it 4 years. They brought it back to 3 years. And our policy, the way our policies, educational policies emerge is quite amazing. Politicians, some of the educational systems are based on party manifestos and not related to our developmental needs. Prospects for the future. Anything can happen within the future once we are able to change our attitudes. But looking at the basic level, it's like we've laid a solid foundation. The school system is very good. You can educate yourself to any level. At the basic level, you attend school free, you are provided books, sometimes you are given school uniforms and boots and shoes. So at the basic level, it's quite good. But when you reach the tertiary level, that's where the problem is. Our the tertiary level is delayed from the outside world. And that's a major problem if we going forward, if we really intend to develop. Our current educational policies is not in line with our developmental needs. So if we don't change and we still follow the same rules, I don't think we'll be able to make a headway. However, going forward, if we are able to shift or if we are able to change our educational systems such that they are proactive, we'll be able to, as it were, have a better future. Governments will also have to have solid commitments, not necessarily putting the plan, but funding it. Then we also have implementation problems. Normally, problems in Africa are that we have good policies, but when it comes to implementation, we don't do well. So, if we are able to implement the policies well, review them periodically, and go in line with the world, we'll be able to make a headway. Politicization. Our systems, everything has been politicized, even the educational system. Politicians now want to use the educational system to win elections. So as it were, they take the educational system and they give promises based on this. And that is, if you are able to limit or reduce the politicization of this, we'll be able to make impact. The more importantly, if you are able to introduce training educational policy models, as it were, people are now learning systems, but in Ghana we are not more there yet. Thank you very much.
Good fight. Dog. Thank you very much. I hope you don't get bored. We have an interesting session. Now we are left with 2 basic items on our agenda, and let me quickly announce that after the program we'll have a cocktail party at the ground floor. So you cannot hesitate to miss this. Anyway, our chairman is actually on another tight working schedule. He has another program to co-chair at another place. It is out of his busy running schedules that we beg him to also be here. As a result, the chairman will be preparing to give his closing remark, Kapanish Konishmasi. But before he comes, actually, we would like to invite another person who led the Ghana delegation from Istanbul, the Ghana Derneyi, known as Ghana de Istanbul. Within a twinkling of an eye, 2 minutes, we'll take a word from him. The chairman closes the session, and most importantly, we have a cutting ceremony, a sword to be cut down there. After that, we'll zigzag into the room for the cocktail. You can't afford, please bear with us. So, Mr. Hassan Furkan, take it.
Ben mikrofonsuz konuşsam sıkıntı olmaz herhalde. Sesim çok az geliyor ama. Öyle mi? Sesim çok az geliyor. Kendi sesimi duyunca heyecanlanıyorum o yüzden. Şöyle duruyor herhalde. İsmim Hasan Furkan. İstanbul'dan geliyorum. İstanbul'daki kardeşlerimizin ve Türkiye'nin birçok yerindeki Ganalı öğrencilerin selamlarını ilettim size. Ayrıca kardeşlerimizin nazik daveti için çok teşekkür ederim. 2 yıldır davet ediyorlar, biz de gelmeye çalışıyoruz. Vaktim çok kısa, o yüzden 2-3 bir şey bahsedeceğim hemen. Biz ne yapıyoruz, bunu söyleyeceğim. Şimdi şurada diğer resme geçebilir miyiz? Şimdi bu cami Batı Afrika'nın en büyük camisi. Gana'nın merkezi Akra'da bulunuyor. Yapımı elhamdülillah tamamlandı. Nasip olursa Ramazan'a olmasa kurbana yetişecek ve açılacak. Bu bir mühür.
At-takbir!
Şimdi bu bir mühür ne demek? İslam'ın mührü tabii ki. Osmanlı'yı biliyorsunuz hepiniz. Fethettiği bölgelerde her seferinde ilk yaptığı şey camiye kurmak olmuş, etrafına da halk yerleşmiş. Elhamdülillah çok güzel de Balkanlarda olsun, Orta Asya'da olsun, Türkiye Cumhuriyetlerde olsun her tarafta Müslümanlığı yaymış ve devam ettirmiş. Afrika'nın, daha doğrusu Kuzey Afrika'da aynı şekilde. Şimdi bu Akra'yı biliyorsunuz, Hristiyanların biraz yoğun olarak yaşadığı bir yer. Ama bu camiyi Tamera'da yapabilirdik. Mesela Tamera'da daha fazla Müslümanlar var. Çift imamların çalışmasını zaten hikayesini biliyorsunuz. Caminin geçmişi biraz eski. O vesileyle cami oraya kurulmuş oldu. 15.000 kişilik kapasitesi var toplamda. Aklımda var. 15.000 kişilik. Aha. Diğer resme geçebilir miyiz? Diğer resmi. Önceki fotoğraf. Şimdi şöyle anlatayım. Şu cami, burası bir külliye, kompleks diyelim. National Furkan Mosque Külliyesi. Şurada 400 kişilik İmam Hatip Lisesi var. Erkek İmam Hatip Lisesi. İsmi TINASCO, Trinity National High School. Tam yukarı tarafta. Evet. Üst taraf yatakhane. 300'e yakın kapasitesi var. Bu tarafta sınıflar ve idari birimler var aynı şekilde. Şurası restoran. Yani külliye gelen misafirlerin ağır yemek değil de böyle aperatif atıştırması açısından bir şey var. Şuradaki binaya girebiliriz. Şu bina vakıf binası. Hüday Vakfı'nın, Gana Derneği'nin merkez binası. Ayrıca burada CİMSA'nın ofisi var. Sonra Türkiye Mezunları Derneği'nin ofisi var. Şu an açılıyor yavaş yavaş. Ayrıca hanımlar için de bir gençlik merkezi bulunuyor buradaki şeyde. Şu bina kütüphane binası. kütüphane binasında kadın doğum ve sağlık ocağı, klinik, küçük bir kliniğimiz var. Uluslararası kütüphane dediğimiz Amerika Diyanet İşleri Başkanlığı'yla, Diyanet İşleri Birimi'yle daha doğrusu ve Türkiye Diyanet İşleri Başkanlığı'nın bu İSAM kütüphanesiyle elektronik bir şekilde birçok kaynaktan ulaşılabilecek şekilde bir kütüphanesi bulunuyor. Yine hanım kültür merkezi, gençlik, bayanlar için ve hanımlar için de bir kültür merkezi burada da mevcut. Biraz daha kompleks, büyük bir şekilde. Burası da Gana'nın Diyanet İşleri Başkanlığı resmi olmayan bu çift ünvanlık yapısı dediğimiz çift ünvanın oturacağı kendi ofis binası. Şurada 400 kişilik bir konferans salonu var. Müslümanlara hitap etmesi için. Gana'ya gittiğimiz zaman ben çift ünvanı ziyaret ettik. Çift ünvanın evine gidiyordu denildi. Zannediyorum ki böyle çok güzel, büyük, Müslümanlara yakışır bir yer ama maalesef öyle bir yer değil. Çok eski, kenar bir mahallede, kendi halinde bir ev. İnşallah buraya geldiği zaman, bu cami açıldığı zaman, bu külliye açıldığı zaman Müslümanlar şöyle hani gururlanmak bize yakışmaz ama şöyle göğüsleri kabaracak yani. Elhamdülillah diyecek. Biz de Müslüman memlekette yaşıyoruz, Müslümanlar için yaşıyoruz. Hep beraber bu tebliği, bu çalışmayı yapmak için inşallah güzel bir eser. Bunu Gana Derneği yaptı, Müdahale Vakfı yaptı. Türkiye Diyanet İşleri Başkanlığı'nın bir kısım yardımı oldu. Bunun dışında Abdullah Tinikli ve Fahrettin Tinikli, ikisi de vefat etti. Onların %70-80 desteği bulunuyor bu külliye için. Zaten okulun ismi de oradan geliyor, TİNASKO, Tinikli İnanç and High School diye. Onlara da Allah rahmet eylesin, bu arada ismini almış olalım. Bu cami yapıldı ama şu an Diyanet İşleri Başkanlığı'yla bir 15 yıllık bir protokol imzalandı. Hem Türkiye Diyanet İşleri Başkanlığı hem de Gana'nın Diyanet İşleri Başkanlığı'yla. Bu 3'e bölünmüş bir süreç, 15 yıllık. Orada işte %75 ilk başta Türkiye'nin çalışmalarına devam ettirecek, %25 Gana'da. İkinci 5 yıl %50 çalışmalar. Üçüncü 5 yıl artık Türkiye yavaş yavaş çekiliyor ve bunu devam ettirecek olan, çalıştıracak olan Gana Müslümanları. Ve Gana Müslümanlarının da, yani ben bahsettim, şu an Türkiye'deyim. Türkiye'deki Gana öğrencilerin çoğunluğunu tanıyorum. Bildiğim kadarıyla 350 civarı öğrenci var. 300 ile ben tanışmış bulunuyorum. Bunların arasında evet Hristiyan öğrenciler de var, az da olsa. Ama çoğunluğunu Müslüman öğrenci oluşturuyor. Sizler oluşturuyorsunuz. Ben diyorum ki Türkiye'deki arkadaşlar lütfen beraber birlikte çok güzel çalışmalar yapalım. Gana'da ses olsun. Ben buna inanıyorum. Hani gülüyorsunuz ama ben buna inanıyorum. İnandığım için çalışıyorum çünkü. Yoksa branşın fizik öğretmenliği, gidip bir kişilik öğretmenliği yapabilirdim. Herhangi bir kolejde, herhangi bir yerde. Buna inandığım için yapıyorum. Afrika'ya küçük bir katkımız olsun yapıyorum. Acizane. İnşallah hayırlara vesile olur. Hep beraber bu camide namaz kılmış oluruz yani bir programda. Ben teşekkür ederim. Daha fazla uzatmayayım. Allah razı olsun.
Çok teşekkür ederiz. Böyle herhalde mübarek ya da Muripi Gana Cumhurbaşkanı olduğu zaman biz de muhurumuz belki değiştirebiliriz. Mufti var zaten, o sıkıntı yok. Anyway, I think we don't need any translation because he spoke directly in Turkish and all of us supposedly should understand Turkish. Now, I would like to, before inviting the chairman, let me re-acknowledge the presence of our brothers and sisters from our other countries. I can see friends represented highly from Zimbabwe. I can see those from Sudan, from Guinea-Bissau, from Burkina Faso, from Chad, from Gambia, Kenya, Uganda, Somalia, Tanzania, Cote d'Ivoire, and of course, Niger will take the best. The end shall be the first. And then, of course, Niger. They are also represented at the back highly. So you are all wholeheartedly acknowledged and welcome to our program. We do acknowledge it.